I have myself and my team out making great content and acquiring great content, but if 1 out of 10 times you push play, it didn't work, we'd be toast.
And I guess bringing in a new White Wolf at this point in the season, a bold move and a tall order for Liam.
And of course, he wanted to honor the character that had already been set up because he knows that he's stepping into a role. But at the same time, he wanted to make sure that his performance was authentic, that it felt like him, that he wasn't playing and mimicking anything. And so
let's just say the reaction is exactly what we expected. It is getting completely and totally annihilated by the fans. In fact, season 4 earned series low Rotten Tomatoes score as Liam Hemsworth Geralt arrives on Netflix.
I'm the most annoying guy on set because I'm saying, excuse me, you do realize that this should be happening and they wouldn't do that, and you haven't read this, that means this would be impossible. And everyone's just going, Henry, just shut up and do the thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do the thing because he wouldn't do it this way, and he can do it.
Yeah. And that's where you start to get more uncomfortable when you're thinking, there's not a
The Witcher was supposed to be 7 seasons, but it was abruptly cut down to 5 after Henry Cavill left, and Lauren Hissrich is lucky she got that. But she does say, are there more stories? Maybe. Well, actually, there's a lot because you skipped them. But this one has to end at this point. So I think it's a nice time for all of us to step back a little bit. And that probably has a lot to do with the audience stepping back a long time ago.
It was posted last night. Netflix's Q2 report came out, and apparently they lost 1 million subscribers in the second quarter of this year, which we already saw that at the beginning of the year, they lost 200,000. The next month, they lost another couple 100,000, and they had projected that they were going to lose a couple million over the next few months. I don't really think people believed it, but it happened.
Millions of people are canceling their Netflix subscriptions. Why Netflix stock is absolutely tanking right now. I mean, it is just collapsing totally in the red. And you can see that it is on a massive downward slope this month. It's cratering. Why is that happening?
And you have a sense that you're going, is this really necessary?
I watched about 35, 40 minutes of the first episode, and I ended up texting Gary. And I just said, dude, I cannot do this. I'm 40 odd minutes in. I'm done. I've had enough. This is utter.
As the years have gone by, Netflix's Witcher series has gotten worse and worse. Recasts, rewrites, moving further away from the source material has truly damaged this show to the point of no return. There's no way that they could save it going into the last season. But now that season 4 is out and we only have 1 more to go, this show is basically hated by everybody.
Let me ask you guys something. Are you excited for Witcher season 4?
Isn't it out right now on Netflix?
Just coming out, and the reviews have started to drop. So
because I looked on Rotten Tomatoes, and bear in mind, given the backlash, I would expect a little bit of review bombing. So people who haven't seen it but who hate the concept. Oh no, you're behind, Drinker.
It's down to, is it changed?
It's down to 17%.
Something massive just went down inside Netflix. The company that built its empire on binge-worthy hits is now dealing with one of its biggest disasters yet.
The Witcher Season 4 is out, and looks like they needed Henry after all. 56% critic score, 17% audience score, and if you're like, well, I really trust the critics, the audience is probably just review bombing it, then you're gonna have to explain why the top critics is 33% as well. That means 2/3 of them didn't think it was above a 5.
And it's all because of The Witcher. Season 4 was supposed to be the triumphant return of one of Netflix's most expensive fantasy series. Instead, it's become a global embarrassment.
For other positive reviews, well, you've got IGN, that's never a good sign, as Critical Drinker says, they can't exactly be trusted when The Penguin got a 5, The Witcher got a 7, and The Marvels got an 8. It basically looks like their score goes up the more girl power a series has. Siri. Although they did give Willow a 9, so there are times when they absolutely knock it out of the park.
Fans are furious, reviews are tanking, and behind closed doors, the CEO himself has reportedly confronted the show's creator, demanding answers. Because according to multiple insiders, Ted Sarandos, the man who oversees everything that hits the Netflix home screen, is made happy. And his frustration? It's directed straight at The Witcher's showrunner, Lauren Schmidt Hissrich. The reason? The decision that fans warned them about for almost 2 years, replacing Henry Cavill with Liam Hemsworth as Geralt of Rivia. media.
And The Witcher showrunner also addressed the backlash to the show. No one's taking the books away. No one's taking the video games away. Everyone can have their version of The Witcher. Unfortunately for you, Lauren, it turns out no one wanted your version.
What started as an ordinary fantasy recast has spiraled into a full-blown PR nightmare. Viewers are walking away, social media's on fire, and Netflix is suddenly facing the one thing it never expected: fans turning against its biggest fantasy show. But what really happened behind the scenes? What led the CEO to confront the showrunner? And how did The Witcher, once one of Netflix's most respected titles, become the internet's latest punching bag? Let's break down the meltdown that's now shaking Netflix from the inside. When The Witcher Season 4 dropped on October 30th, fans expected at least one thing: excitement. Instead, what they got was confusion, frustration, and disbelief. The first episode premiered, and almost instantly online reactions turned ugly. The Rotten Tomatoes audience score plummeted within 24 hours. IMDb reviews flooded in, calling it a shell of its former self. Social media told the story even better. Twitter, or X as it's now called, was a wall of disappointment. Hashtags like #NotMyGeralt and #BringBackHenry started trending across multiple countries. Memes comparing Henry Cavill's intense, grounded Geralt to Liam Hemsworth's noticeably lighter performance went viral within hours. And the backlash wasn't just about the actor swap. Fans noticed the writing felt off. Entire subplots from the novels were rewritten or ignored, and longtime fans said it felt like the show had lost its soul. On Reddit, discussion threads blew up. One fan wrote, "It's like they never even read Sapkowski's books," while another said, "They turned Geralt into a side character in his own story." Within the first weekend, streaming analytics showed a sharp drop. Completion rates, the percentage of people who finished the first episode, were dramatically lower than Season 3. For Netflix, that was a huge red flag. Behind the scenes, producers were reportedly alarmed. Viewership charts, the kind that executives monitor daily, showed numbers dipping faster than expected. Normally, a Netflix fantasy series would dominate social media buzz and pull massive rewatch numbers. But instead of excitement, there was outrage. And that outrage wasn't quiet. Even major entertainment outlets began covering the controversy. Headlines from outlets like Screen Rant and Collider highlighted the fan revolt, while YouTube creators and film critics tore into the creative direction, calling it a betrayal of the fans who built this show. The truth is, it didn't just flop, it bombed. Critics could spin the narrative however they wanted, but the audience reaction was loud and unified. Without Henry Cavill, The Witcher felt empty, and as the noise grew louder, Netflix couldn't ignore it anymore. What started as an online backlash was quickly becoming a full-scale crisis, and that's when the real drama began. But Netflix's problems were only beginning. Because while fans were roasting the show online, inside the company, the pressure was boiling over. According to insiders close to Netflix, the internal response was immediate and tense. Within days of The Witcher's premiere, early viewership numbers came in, and they were disastrous. The first 72-hour window, the key metric Netflix uses to gauge success, was far below expectations. Ted Sarandos, Netflix's co-CEO, was reportedly furious. This wasn't just another show. The Witcher was supposed to be Netflix's flagship fantasy franchise. After losing Game of Thrones audiences to HBO and Lord of the Rings viewers to Amazon, The Witcher had been Netflix's answer. It was supposed to dominate. Instead, it crashed. And the worst part? The executives knew the fan base had warned them. Every post, every interview, every piece of feedback screamed the same thing: Henry Cavill is Geralt. Yet the creative team, led by showrunner Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, pushed forward, confident the audience would adjust. Sources say that when the internal numbers landed on Ted's desk, his reaction was sharp. He reportedly demanded a meeting with Lauren and other key producers. One insider described it as tense, like everyone in the room knew they were about to be held accountable. Ted didn't hold back. He allegedly questioned why so many loyal fans had turned away, why early critics' reviews weren't addressed, and how such an expensive project, costing nearly $100 million, could underperform this badly. One quote, reportedly shared through someone close to the meeting, summed it up. "We warned you about this. Fans told you this would happen, and you ignored them." Lauren, known for defending her creative vision, pushed back. She argued that the show needed to evolve beyond the books, that it couldn't depend solely on Henry's version of Geralt forever. She said Season 4 was about expanding the world, exploring new dynamics. But to Ted, it didn't matter. The audience had spoken, and their message was savage. The meeting ended abruptly. Some insiders described it as a confrontation, not a discussion. And within hours, Netflix's PR department was already drafting talking points for upcoming press interviews, trying to get ahead of the narrative before it spiraled completely out of control. Meanwhile, employees across Netflix's production offices started whispering. Emails leaked suggesting The Witcher's creative direction might be reevaluated for Season 5. There were even rumors that Ted was considering bringing in outside producers to course-correct the show, an unprecedented move for a Netflix original. Behind the curtain, chaos was brewing. The once celebrated fantasy epic had turned into a corporate headache, and fans could feel it. And as Netflix scrambled to manage the fallout, the internet only got louder because the audience wasn't done talking. By the end of the first week, it wasn't just about numbers anymore. It had turned personal. Netflix executives were facing angry shareholders, fan petitions, and savage headlines, and Ted Sarandos had finally reached his breaking point. According to multiple insiders, he personally requested a private meeting with Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, the showrunner behind The Witcher, to talk about what went wrong. That meeting would go on to become one of the most talked about moments inside Netflix's offices. It reportedly happened late in the evening, behind closed doors, in one of the company's upper conference suites, a quiet setting, but full of tension. Ted didn't waste time. He came straight out with it. "Lauren, what happened here? We were supposed to build a franchise. This was meant to be our fantasy empire, not a disaster." Lauren, caught off guard but composed, defended her team. She insisted that creative freedom had always been part of Netflix's philosophy, that The Witcher was evolving, and fans simply needed time to adjust to Liam Hemsworth's version of Geralt. But Ted wasn't buying it. He reportedly pulled up charts showing viewership collapsing by the day, week-over-week engagement dropping faster than any major Netflix show since Cowboy Bebop. He pointed to social media analytics. Sentiment scores were overwhelmingly negative. "This isn't evolution," he said. "It's rejection." Lauren pushed back. She claimed the backlash was a vocal minority, the same argument Netflix had used before to defend unpopular creative choices. But Ted fired back with data. Millions of viewers stopped watching mid-season. Tens of thousands unsubscribed in protest. The numbers were too big to ignore. The discussion grew heated. Ted accused Lauren of alienating the show's most passionate fans by roasting the source material and undervaluing the fandom that built this franchise. According to someone familiar with the exchange, Lauren responded sharply, saying, "Fans don't always know what's best for the story. We have to take creative risks." But that comment reportedly set Ted off. He reminded her that The Witcher wasn't just a passion project. It was a billion-dollar property. It needed to respect the audience, not fight them. By the time the meeting ended, the room was silent. Ted left first. Witnesses said his parting words were cold and final. "If we can't fix this, we don't have a future with this series." Lauren stayed behind, stunned. She'd just been confronted by the CEO of Netflix, not in a boardroom filled with lawyers, but face-to-face, and directly blamed for the platform's biggest embarrassment of the year. And the worst part? Word of that confrontation leaked. Within days, entertainment blogs began whispering that Netflix's CEO had personally confronted The Witcher showrunner. The story spread fast, and once it hit Reddit, fans turned the leak into fuel, because to them, it was confirmation of everything they'd been saying for months. The fans were right. The leadership was wrong. And now, even Netflix's own boss had admitted it. But the chaos outside the studio walls was only getting started, because while the executives argued behind closed doors, fans were mobilizing in full force online. And they weren't just angry. They were out for revenge. Once the news about the confrontation began to spread, the internet exploded. For fans who had been shouting into the void since Henry Cavill's departure, it felt like validation. Finally, someone at the top was listening. But instead of calming things down, it made the outrage 10 times louder. Reddit threads turned into full-on movements. One of the top posts in r/Witcher got over 100,000 upvotes in a single day, titled, "Even Netflix's CEO knows they screwed up." Fans dissected every leak, every rumor, treating it like evidence in a courtroom. On X, the hashtag #FireLauren started trending globally. YouTubers released back-to-back breakdowns titled things like "The Fall of the Witcher" and "How Netflix Ruined Its Best Show." TikTok was filled with side-by-side edits comparing Henry's Geralt, stoic, commanding, intense, with Liam Hemsworth's interpretation, which many described as awkward and emotionally flat. Everywhere you looked, fans were saying the same thing. Netflix had destroyed its own success. Even professional critics joined in. Major outlets ran articles like "The Witcher loses its magic without Cavill," and "Netflix risks, fans rebel." The numbers reflected it too. After the first weekend, streaming data leaked showing the show's watch time had plummeted by over 60% compared to the previous season's premiere. For a franchise of that size, it was catastrophic. And through all of this, Henry Cavill's name kept reappearing like a ghost haunting Netflix. Old clips resurfaced, interviews where he talked about staying true to the lore, or about fighting for Geralt's integrity. Those clips were now going viral again, framed by fans as proof that Cavill saw the collapse coming long before anyone else did. Some fans even created digital petitions calling for a full reboot, one that would bring Cavill back, even if it meant scrapping the entire new season. Within a week, one of those petitions passed 500,000 signatures. The anger wasn't just about one casting change anymore. It had become symbolic. Fans felt betrayed by Netflix's arrogance and by Lauren's creative choices that seemed to ignore what made The Witcher special in the first place. And that kind of emotional outrage is something Netflix can't fix with marketing. You can buy billboards, run damage control interviews, even launch apology tweets, but when a fan base turns against you, the battle's already lost. Inside Netflix, reports say executives were watching the numbers drop in real time. Meetings grew more frequent. PR staff began working overtime to craft statements about respecting the fans and honoring Henry Cavill's legacy. But it was too late, because by that point, the narrative had escaped Netflix's control. The story wasn't just The Witcher flopped, it was Netflix betrayed the fans and got burned for it. And as chaos spread across every corner of the internet, Ted Sarandos faced a savage reality. The Witcher, once their fantasy crown jewel, was now their biggest failure since Cowboy Bebop. But what happened next would shock everyone inside Netflix, because while the world was still roasting the fallout, Ted wasn't done yet. Behind closed doors, he began planning something that could change the future of the franchise, or end it completely. Even after the storm started to fade, one name refused to disappear: Henry Cavill. It didn't matter how many marketing clips Netflix dropped of Liam Hemsworth swinging his sword in slow motion, or how many interviews Lauren gave about creative reinvention. Everywhere the show went, Henry's ghost followed. Clips of his interviews from years ago were going viral again. Moments where he talked about his love for the Witcher books, his commitment to the lore, and his respect for the fans. In one old red carpet interview, Henry had said, "As long as the show stays true to Sapkowski's world, I'll stay as Geralt." That quote resurfaced like a curse. Fans started spamming it in the comments of every new Witcher post. To them, it wasn't just a quote. It was prophecy. Because when Henry left, it wasn't for scheduling conflicts or fatigue. It was creative differences. And that phrase, creative differences, suddenly felt like code for something much deeper. Fans began dissecting every rumor, every insider post, every offhand comment from former writers who hinted that Henry had been frustrated with the show's direction. Screenshots from old interviews where Cavill seemed distant or unenthusiastic during Season 3 press tours resurfaced. Fans noticed how his tone had changed, like he already knew the show was falling apart. And when people connected that to the Season 4 disaster, it painted a clear picture. Henry had seen it coming. Even industry insiders began commenting. A few entertainment journalists posted that Cavill's departure might go down as one of the biggest "I told you so" moments in Netflix history. Others said it exposed how out of touch the platform's creative decision-making had become. And it wasn't just online noise anymore. Henry Cavill's name was actually boosting competitor content. Whenever he appeared in an interview or trailer for another project, especially the upcoming Warhammer 40K adaptation, those videos exploded with comments from Witcher fans saying things like, "This is what passion for the Source looks like." Liam Hemsworth, meanwhile, was trapped in an impossible position. Every move he made was compared to Henry's. Even if he gave a solid performance, fans didn't want to see it. They wanted him, the original Geralt, the one who cared. And that became the show's biggest problem. The Witcher had lost its identity. The character of Geralt wasn't just being played by someone new. It was as if the soul behind the series had been replaced. By now, the damage was irreversible. The backlash wasn't about bad writing or clumsy dialogue anymore. It was emotional. Fans felt betrayed. They believed Henry Cavill had been disrespected for fighting to protect what made The Witcher special, and Netflix had punished him for it. Everywhere Netflix looked, that narrative was dominating the conversation. And if there's one thing no corporation wants, it's the perception that they silenced the one person who actually cared about the fans. Inside Netflix, the mood turned grim. Executives were no longer debating creative direction. They were now in damage control mode, and that's where things got desperate. Because as the backlash hit global headlines, Netflix's leadership decided to step in. Not with apologies, but with something far more calculated. When a billion-dollar streaming empire starts losing control of the story, there's always a plan B. And Netflix moved fast. Within days of the meltdown, the PR machine roared to life. Anonymous sources began feeding entertainment outlet stories that painted a calmer picture, one that made the controversy look exaggerated. Suddenly, articles appeared claiming that Liam Hemsworth brings fresh energy to the role, or that Season 4 viewership remains strong despite online backlash. The problem? Fans saw right through it. They could tell these headlines weren't organic. The timing was too perfect. At the same time, Netflix began pushing out glossy behind-the-scenes footage showing the cast laughing on set, trying to humanize the production and soften the criticism. But every time they posted one, the comments section was filled with the same words: "You can't PR your way out of disrespecting Henry." Behind closed doors, Ted Sarandos was reportedly working overtime to contain the chaos. Internal reports say he ordered the marketing department to audit all social media engagement metrics, anything that could be salvaged, anything that might slow down the negative momentum. The result? A flurry of confusing, contradictory statements. One week, Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich gave an interview claiming the recast was an exciting creative challenge. The next, Netflix posted a vague press release about respecting fan voices and the legacy of Geralt. It was damage control by committee, and it showed. Meanwhile, inside the company, rumors spread that The Witcher's future was in jeopardy. Ted was allegedly considering pulling the plug on Season 5, or at least restructuring it it under a new leadership team. Several executives reportedly pushed for bringing in an external producer, someone who could repair the show's reputation before it became Netflix's permanent black mark. The conversations even went beyond The Witcher. Some insiders claimed the disaster forced Netflix to rethink how much creative freedom it gives its showrunners, especially for high-budget adaptations. One executive reportedly said, "This is what happens when you ignore the fans. We thought we were making art. Turns out we were breaking trust." At the same time, marketing leaks suggested Netflix was quietly shifting resources away from The Witcher toward newer fantasy projects, trying to divert attention before the stockholders started asking too many questions. But the damage was already done. Fans no longer trusted Netflix to handle beloved franchises, and no amount of interviews, PR spin, or fancy trailers could erase the image of Ted Sarandos sitting across from Lauren Hissrich, asking her how she managed to destroy one of Netflix's crown jewels. By the second week after release, the writing was on the wall. The Witcher brand, once Netflix's biggest fantasy success, had become a warning sign, a case study in how not to treat your audience. And yet, behind all the corporate panic and PR statements, one question still haunted the halls of Netflix. Was there any way to fix it? Because Ted Sarandos wasn't ready to walk away just yet. He had one last card to play, a risky move that could either save The Witcher or bury it forever. For weeks, the storm refused to fade. Every attempt at spin collapsed the moment it hit social media. Netflix had reached a breaking point, and Ted Sarandos knew something drastic had to happen. Quietly, a task force was assembled, a small group of senior executives, marketing strategists, and outside consultants to decide the fate of The Witcher. Their first conclusion was savage. Season 4 had become radioactive. The backlash wasn't fixable with reshoots or edits, it was structural. The audience no longer believed in the vision. Ted wanted options. Could they rebuild it? Could they course correct before Season 5 production started? One consultant reportedly told him, "You can't patch a sinking ship when the captain won't admit it's leaking." That captain, of course, was Lauren Schmidt Hissrich. Inside Netflix's walls, her name had become synonymous with controversy. Some insiders defended her, saying she was being scapegoated for executive decisions above her pay grade. Others claimed she'd gone too far, that her stubbornness had cost Netflix hundreds of millions and a loyal global fan base. In early November, just 2 weeks after the show's disastrous premiere, an emergency creative review meeting was held. Ted attended in person. The tone was icy. According to those who were there, he listened in silence as the data team laid out slide after slide showing collapsing retention curves, negative sentiment graphs, and plummeting subscription trends in key markets. When the presentation ended, Ted reportedly said only one sentence: "This franchise needs a reset." What followed was a wave of internal changes. Several senior producers were quietly reassigned to other projects. A new consultant, someone who had previously worked on The Crown, was brought in to advise on tone and audience engagement. Lauren, while still credited as showrunner publicly, was now under what insiders called creative supervision. And then came the real risk. Ted approved early development of a potential Witcher rebirth, a soft reboot that would retell Geralt's story closer to the novels, potentially even bringing Henry Cavill back in a producer role if future negotiations allowed. The idea sounded impossible, but to Netflix, it was the only card left to play. If they couldn't save Season 4, maybe they could rebuild the legend around it. Still, it was a risky move, one that would admit to the world that Netflix had failed. Ted knew the optics would be savage, but the alternative was worse, letting The Witcher fade as a punchline. Internally, some called it Project White Wolf. Externally, no one knew it existed. Yet for all the bold plans and crisis meetings, there was one truth Netflix couldn't escape. They had underestimated the fans. And as Ted Sarandos looked over the numbers late one night in his Los Angeles office, he realized something that would haunt him. This wasn't just a Witcher problem anymore. It was a Netflix problem. Because once you lose the trust of your audience, you don't just lose one show, you start losing everything. Months later, the dust still hadn't settled. The Witcher remained on the platform, but it wasn't a headline. It was a cautionary tale. Industry podcasts dissected the fiasco. Marketing analysts used it as a case study. Words like fan trust, brand damage, and creative disconnect started appearing in Netflix board meetings far more than anyone was comfortable with. For Lauren Schmidt Hissrich, the fallout was career-defining. Her defenders praised her for creative courage, but even they admitted the execution had failed. To the public, she became the face of what happens when creators stop listening. For Ted Sarandos, it was a lesson learned the hard way. The confrontation that once leaked as rumor was now quietly confirmed inside the company. Yes, he'd challenged Lauren directly, and yes, it had forced a reckoning. He began personally reviewing creative reports from other high-budget productions, determined not to repeat the same mistake. And for the fans, the people who had carried The Witcher from a niche fantasy into a global hit, the damage felt permanent. Many canceled subscriptions. Others vowed never to support Netflix fantasy again. But some held out hope. They whispered about Project White Wolf, about the possibility of Henry returning one day, about the franchise finding redemption, because deep down, everyone wanted to believe that the world of Geralt of Rivia could still be saved. As for Netflix, it kept moving, like it always does. New shows, new headlines, new distractions. But no matter what they released next, the shadow of The Witcher lingered, a reminder of how quickly loyalty can turn into rebellion, and how even the most powerful streaming giant in the world isn't immune to its audience. The Witcher's downfall wasn't just about an actor being replaced, it was about respect for the fans fans, for the story, and for the passion that built it all in the first place. So when people look back at 2025 and ask what went wrong with The Witcher, the answer will always be the same. Netflix forgot that you can't algorithm your way to heart. And somewhere in a quiet corner of the internet, Henry Cavill's words still echo. As long as the show stays true to the world, I'll stay as Geralt. Now it's up to Netflix to decide. Will they finally listen? Or will The Witcher remain the ghost that haunts them forever?